Welcome back, everyone. We have finished Unit 1, and so now we're moving right along to Unit 2. Unit 2 is going to be all about quadratics, factoring, solving, graphing. So that is what we're diving into with this lesson, which is factor and solve quadratics when a is equal to 1. Today you'll be able to factor and solve a quadratic when a is equal to 1. So first off, let's remind yourselves of what a quadratic is. It's probably been a while since you have seen a quadratic, but you should at least vaguely remember what they are. So the first concept is standard form of a quadratic function. The standard form of a quadratic function when a is equal to 1 is x squared plus bx plus c. So we're going to start with factoring. So factoring quadratics when a is equal to 1. To factor x squared plus bx plus c, we need to find the factors of c that give us b. After finding the correct factors, we turn them into binomials being multiplied. So we're going to go from this x squared plus bx plus c to this x plus a factor times x plus our second factor. Now, you guys need to be aware it's not always going to be plus for both factors. Now, to figure out, how it's going to be plus or how it's going to be minus, here are some nifty rules that you can follow. So, if you have positive bx and positive c, then both factors will be positive. If you have negative bx and positive c, then both factors will be negative. If you have plus bx and minus c, then the big factor of your factored pair will be positive, meaning the small factor will be negative. And then finally, if we have minus bx and minus c, then the big factor will be negative, meaning the small factor will be positive. So those essentially are our rules, but the biggest one to remember, factors of c that give us b. So let's start. We have a few examples here. I always start with identifying my c. So for the first one, x squared plus 6x plus 8. 8 is my c. So we're going to bring it over here. So factors of 8. 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Now, since bx and c are both positive, both factors will be positive. So there's no negatives here. So we just want the pair that gives us 6. And what I mean gives us, adds up to. What adds up to 6? And that is 2 and 4. So now we're going to write 2 and 4 as binomials. So we're going to have x plus 2, x plus 4. And we're done. All right, our next one, x squared minus 10x plus 16. So we want factors of 16. So we have 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. Now, if we look at our little rules, minus bx plus c, both factors are going to be negative. So I'm going to go add a negative onto all of them. Now, let's find which pair adds up to negative 10. The only pair here that adds up to negative 10 is negative 2 and negative 8. So our factors are going to be x minus 2 x minus 8. Our next one, x squared plus 5x minus 24. Factors of 24. Now, as you can see, I did not bring along the negative because since I have these rules up here, I don't need to bring this negative. I just need to follow these rules after I find my pairs. So we have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Now if I look up to our rules, if it is plus bx and minus c, the big factor is positive, so the small factor is going to be negative. So I'm just going to come and attach a negative onto all my small factors and leaving the big factors positive. And what I mean by that is by pair. So the smaller one in the pair of 1 and 24 is 1. So it's always by the pair. So now we want the pair that adds up to positive 5. The only pair here that does that is negative 3 and 8. So now our factors, x minus 3, x plus 8. All right, last one. X squared minus 3x minus 18. So we want factors of 18. So we have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. So now let's go to our shortcut. We have minus b and minus c. So that means the big factor this time will be negative. So the big factor of each pair will be negative. And now we check which of these pairs will add up to negative 3. 3 and negative 6. So now we write it, x plus 3, x minus 6. So that is factoring quadratics when a is equal to 1, x squared plus bx plus c. Now there are two more ways to factor, and it all depends on what it looks like. So let's go take a look at those. These ones are actually much nicer and will go a lot faster. So the first one is factoring quadratics when a is equal to 1 and no bx. So there's no middle term. So this is going to look like x squared minus c. Now, one thing to take note of is it will always be minus c. If you have x squared plus c, it can't factor, it won't work. So it'll always be minus c. All right, so when there is no bx, your factors will be the square root of c. If it is a perfect square, so that's the key thing. It has to be a perfect square. If it is not a perfect square, then you can't factor it. Each factor binomial will get the number with opposite signs, meaning it's going to be something like this. X plus, x minus. And whatever goes in here, it's going to be the factor, meaning your perfect square. So here, we take 81. So we want the square root of 81, which is 9. So 9 is going to go into both spots, 1 positive, 1 negative. And that's all you have to do here. So now for x squared minus 225, take the square root of 225, which is 15. So we're going to have x plus 15, x minus 15. And we're done. And then finally, the last round of factoring when a is equal to 1 is when you have a equals to 1 and no c value. So you're not going to have your last term. So something like x squared plus bx. This is actually probably the easiest. When there is no c, all you do is factor out an x. That's it. So here, x squared minus 2x, we factor out an x, and we're going to be left with x minus 2. Last one, x squared plus 7x. We factor out an x, and we're going to be left with x plus 7. So we are now done with factoring. We are now going to move on to solving.